All right, here is my opinion about the AP poll going into week 7 of college football. First off, big week this week inside of college football. We saw a lot of top teams fall this week. We saw the likes of Penn State, Florida State with another loss. I think those two teams are out of the college football playoffs, plain and simple. But you see a brand new top 25, and to me, the AP poll has been ripped apart recently for their bias or the way that they have been getting carried on. But regardless of me, I think the AP poll is pretty accurate from week to week. I think this week it got it pretty close on. I'm going to talk through pretty much all these teams, talk through some of the teams that I think should probably either be in or out of it. But for the first time, we have two teams who were inside of the top 25 or who were in the top 5, not even inside of the top 25 anymore. And that's the likes of Texas, who lost to Florida this weekend, and the likes of Penn State, who we already talked about. So let's start at the number 1 position. You got Ohio State sits and holds at that number 1 spot. I like it. I think they're the best team in college football. I'm not going to go that far yet, but I do think they deserve to be at the number 1 spot. No one's taking them off of that spot. Number 2, you have Miami, and what's so funny about, to me, no one is unbeatable inside of college football right now. Because I think Miami are beatable. I think Ohio State are a beatable team. I think the likes of Oregon are a beatable team. We saw that last week when they did play against Penn State, and it was a really close game. The likes of Ole Miss has been playing well. Can their quarterback continue to play the way that he needs to? That's the biggest question mark there. Texas A&M, again. What does that look like for that team? I personally don't love Texas A&M. I'm not gonna lie to you. I love Marcellus Reed. I think he's a really good quarterback. I think he's young. I think he's still a little inaccurate. But I do think that team are very beatable as well. I think their defense is pretty underrated because they've had to do so much, and they're running the ball at a very high clip these days. And I think if they can continue to run the ball effectively and keep Marcellus Reed from throwing the football, he'll be fine. I think you look at Oklahoma. Their quarterback's banged up. How long will he be out? Can the backup come in there and do his job? Because, the backup came in, did his job this past weekend, and, there was nothing to really go home about when it comes to that, but he did his job. Indiana, I like Indiana a lot. I think Indiana are a lot better than a lot of people are giving them. I think number 7 here is fair. Alabama at 8 after beating Vanderbilt at home. This was a good game for Ty Simpson. He did that interception pretty early on. Wasn't great, but it was what it was. I like Alabama's offense a lot. I think they are coming together more than anyone has. The way that they should have come together last year, they are now coming together as a team for sure. You have Texas Tech at that number 9 position. They are setting themselves up for a prime real estate spot inside of the top 25, and I like it. I don't love that we see the likes of Utah, who played okay against Texas Tech. I don't love seeing them outside of the top 25, and us seeing some other teams like Iowa State still in there. I don't love that whatsoever. But regardless, Georgia sits at the number 10 spot after losing to Alabama last week. I think that's fair. I think Georgia, they are a good team in the SEC. Do I think they're the best team in the SEC? Absolutely not. LSU sits at 11. Tennessee goes to 12. I like Tennessee a lot. They are one of my teams that I'll potentially go home about. We'll see, this upcoming week what some more competitive games look like this week, which I'm very excited about. Georgia Tech sits at a number 13 spot. Love Georgia Tech. I hope they can continue to win some football games, man. They can continue because they control the ACC right now. They generally control the ACC. Missouri at 14. Michigan at 15. Notre Dame at 16. True loss Notre Dame sits at 16. Some people don't love that. I think Notre Dame are a team that are a shell of themselves, and they look exactly like the team from last year. They need to be better. They need to change that. That's what, in my opinion, Notre Dame is. They sit at the number 16 spot. Illinois, don't love Illinois there personally. They play Ohio State this upcoming weekend. Their only loss is a blowout loss to Indiana. So I guess you have to go home about that. I mean, we see Alabama plays Missouri this weekend. That'll be a pretty good game. I'll talk about the schedule after I'm going to talk about it. BYU sits at the number 18 spot. They haven't done anything to lose their jobs. Virginia upset Florida State last week. They now sit at that number 19 spot after also winning this weekend as well against Louisville. And so that's not terrible from Virginia. Some recency bias for sure. Vanderbilt sits at number 20. I think they shouldn't get knocked out the top 25 after losing to Alabama. They are a good team. Arizona State sits at 21. Iowa State lost this weekend pretty badly. Don't love them sitting there at that top 25. And that top 25, Cincinnati did beat them and they didn't even drop Davion. So it is what it is. Memphis, they're the only team who are currently bowl eligible. They sit at number 23. South Florida sits at 24, and then Florida State is still inside the top 25 at that number 25 position. So, looking ahead to next week, I mean, Florida State just lost to Miami. I get it. You're going to keep them there for another week, but I don't love it. Looking ahead to next week, South Florida plays North Texas, who are undefeated. That should be a really good game this weekend. You have Alabama, or not Alabama, you have South Carolina playing LSU. It's going to be a great game. I think, South Carolina hasn't had the season that they thought they were going to have, and it's showing. LSU at home, that offense needs to continue. The offense needs to play better if they want to be who they are. Their defense is doing a good enough job. Ohio State versus Illinois is going to be a big weekend for college football inside of the Big Ten. Excited to see Ohio State go against some real competition. Alabama versus Missouri, going to be a good game as well. Who knows what's going to happen there? The quarterback play, whoever's quarterback plays well, I think wins that football game. You have Pittsburgh versus Florida State. I mean, we've seen Florida State on their good days and their bad days. Who knows what's going to happen there? Ole Miss goes against Washington State. Should be a win for them. Indiana versus Oregon. That's going to be one of the games of the week. I'm not going to give my predictions yet, but it's going to be a great game. Oklahoma plays Texas. Again, Arch Manning is on a decline. I'm probably going to ride with Oklahoma to win that one. Virginia Tech, goes against Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech needs to make sure they can continue to play some good football. An underrated game. NC State plays Notre Dame. That would be very underrated. NC State hasn't had a terrible season. Iowa State plays Colorado. Colorado has had a very disappointing season. And so, a lot of those things. Florida goes against Texas A&M. If Florida can play the way that they played last week and their offense can click the way that they can click and not put DJ Lagway in those terrible situations, they could beat Texas A&M, in my opinion. Kansas versus Texas Tech. This will be one of those games that could definitely shock the world. We could see Texas Tech potentially go down. Do I think that'll happen? No, but this is a game to watch. Georgia goes against Auburn. Michigan has USC. BYU has Arizona, and then Utah has Arizona State. Great game to close out for the college football week 7. But let me know what y'all think down in the comments. It's going to be a fun week inside of college football, and I'm excited.